Hello friends and welcome to Late Night Creations. Thanks for joining me this week. This week we have a compilation video. These videos are from previous DIY content from my channel. Remember that the original voiceovers may contain outdated information such as giveaways, playlists, challenges. Just remember that those are all expired and do not apply. Enjoy this Shabby Chic Cottage Salon Makeover video. Hello friends, in today's video I did 3 spindle projects. Spindle projects, you say? You're surprised? No, I know you're not, because you know I love my spindles. But I also am giving you a tour of the salon where I do hair, because I'm going to try and give this salon a little decor makeover. I love the colors in it, and there are some elements in there that I absolutely love, but the decor, it's been in there a while and it needs an update. It needs refreshed. It needs a little, makeover. So I'm going to show the video of it in the beginning, little tour. It's a very small room. And then the next few videos, I'm going to be making some decor for it. And then in the last video, you'll see the final makeover of the salon suite. So let's get crafting. Okay, let's take a little tour of the salon suite where I work. I made this little curtain out of pieces of fabric, and I just have a few little things in my windowsill. I don't have much room to decorate. I do have a few of my little products there. I have pictures of my family. I have some things that clients have given me over the years that I like to display. I do love my clock that I purchased at Aldi. You can see it's noon o'clock as I'm taking this video. I am going to paint this little table that I got from Wayfair. I love my little curtain on the window. I do have this mandatory sign about human trafficking that needs to be displayed a little bit more decoratively. The aprons need to be hung on something a little more attractive. I do love this little narrow desk that I have. And these decorative items have just been in here for a while. I'm a little bit over them. I need a new place to put my pencils. I do love my little business card holder. But some things just need to be made over. Just needs a fresh look. So let's get started on our first DIY. These spindles that I've been using up in my stash, and I have made a pretty good dent in them, but this is just one that I cut down, and I'm going to sand the top of it so it's not quite so sharp and it's a little bit more rounded. I'm going to sand the bottom edges so they're not quite so square. It's just a look I'm going for. And then I'm going to sand all the edges so it's a little bit more smooth and a little bit easier to paint. And I have this little piece of scrap wood and this beautiful decorative knob that I got at Hobby Lobby on clearance once upon a time, and it's been in my stash. This little piece of scrap wood is still some of that old broken down swing set you've heard me talk about if you've been watching my videos for a while, and I'm still using some of those pieces. I love that it has all the old nail holes and all of that character in it. And I'm trying to decide which side of this I'm going to use. So I'm sanding both sides, and I'm not trying to get it smooth. I'm just trying to get some of the dirt and the grunge off of it. And so I really like that hole up there at the top and on that side. And then, but I really like all the holes on this side. I'm really trying to decide, and I end up going with this side. And I'm going to take some weathered wood that's been watered down, and when I have just a little bit of paint left in a jar, I usually will just water it down and use it as my watered down version. And then I'm going to take dark wax by DIY and give it a good coat front, back, and sides. Now I'm going to take Farm Fresh, which was one of my favorite paint colors from DIY, and I'm going to paint this little spindle completely, the entire thing, with Farm Fresh. I'm not going to show you all of that painting, but that's what I did. I'm going to take Beadboard by DIY, and I'm going to dry brush my board, my plank, and the spindle. I'm going to put very, very lightly on the plank of wood. And then I'm going to kind of do a little bit of white wash. So I'm going to dry brush it on there, and then I'm going to wipe off. So it's a little bit of a dry brush and a whitewash. And I like the way that this looks. I didn't want it to look too dark or too light. Still going to take the beadboard and this little chippy brush, and I'm going to hit those high spots on this little spindle just to highlight it so it doesn't look all flat in one color. It looks much more attractive. Plus, we're going to put that white decorative knob on here, and I think it's just going to bring out all the colors and just make it be, you know, look like it all goes together. Now I'm going to take clear wax by DIY. I have my brushes marked so that I use them, the same ones all the time, for the same color waxes. And then I'm going to take a clean little piece of an old t-shirt and buff it. Now I'm looking for my drill bit that's going to be the same size, because I'm just going to drill the hole all the way through this spindle, and then I'm going to stick this little knob all the way through. So I put that down, I make a little hole where I want to drill it, seeing if that's where I want it. Yep, that's where I want it. And then I'm going to, once I get the hole drilled, I decide that I'm going to just put glue all over everything. And then I'm going to do a little hot glue for a quick hold as well. Not realizing that that beautiful little decorative piece doesn't cover this entire solid piece of the spindle. So you'll see how I remedy my little mistake. You know, I kind of like to leave my boo-boos in so you can see how you can always fix it and make it work. So about right here is where I realize, oh, that's not going to work. So I take it off and I just go ahead and stick it down there. Now, I think I realized that I'm going to need a little bit more hot glue on there. The hot glue got dry too quickly, so I just went ahead and applied a little bit more glue and then stuck that side down on the wood. See, fixed that little boo-boo. No worries. It was going to need to be glued down there anyway. So now I'm just going to put a little hot glue. Oops. Please don't drop it on there. And it already has enough of the Titebond Quick and Thick on there. And we're just going to stick that down. Now I'm going to use the Titebond Quick and Thick all over this bolt. And it's going to be down in that hole that we drilled with the drill, and it's going to hold very nicely. And this piece is finished. It's going to look beautiful in my salon suite. The next spindle, DIY, already had that hole in it because, you know, those cross rungs for the chair had that. I love the end of this. You know, the other end is the cut end where I cut it. And I'm going to leave that top just like that because I love that character. And I'm going to leave that hole because I picked up this little knob at my Habitat for Humanity Restore. I think that's what it's called, right? And it was like 50 cents. And then I have this little block. I got these on clearance at Home Depot, I believe, one time. And I took this little round slice. This was one of those in a pack at Dollar Tree, and they were those stickers, and this was the lemon. It was the whole slice of lemon, and I just glued it down in the center, and then I took some wood putty and filled in around the edges. Then I painted the entire thing with beadboard, and now I'm going to take weathered wood, and I'm just going to dry brush around the edges, and I'm going to use Elmer's glue to do the crackle method. I don't want this to be stark white. I wanted it to have a little bit of aging look to it because I'm going for a rustic, shabby chic look. I like shabby chic, but I don't want it to be too clean and too prim and proper. I want it to be a little rustic. So I have a little bit of watered down Elmer's glue in this little silicone muffin, it's not a muffin tin, little muffin cup, and I'm just putting it a thin coat on. I'm not putting a very thick coat on. I'm putting it on the sides and a little bit across the top here. I'm not doing it in the middle because that spindle is going to be sitting on top of this little block. It's going to be our base. Then I'm taking that beadboard again, and I'm trying to be very careful to only do one swipe across. Now I'm doing this while that Elmer's glue is still wet. Before the Elmer's glue dries, I'm doing this, and I'm doing a pretty thick coat of the paint across that glue. Be sure to watch next week's video when I will be doing the 5th Sunday Craft with Friends, a new collab I started at the beginning of the year. For every quarter, there's a 5th Sunday, and I'm taking getting together some friends, and we are crafting the same products and putting our own spin on it. Okay, so back to our little project here, getting that paint on there, and then we're going to see the crackle. I like to add my heat gun to it because it helps the crackle a little bit. You can see there where I sat it down on the table, it kind of messed the paint up a little bit, but that's okay. We'll remedy that shortly. I'm going to take some Titebond Quick and Thick and add it to some cheap air dry clay that I have by Crayola, and I'm going to fix this hole. I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to make it work with that little knob. So I put some of the Titebond in the hole. I'm going to add some Titebond to the clay. I'm going to knead that Titebond into the clay. Surely made a mess on my hands, but guess what? It washes right off with some warm water. I'm going to knead it up in there, and I'm going to put that clay into that hole, and then I'm going to use this little spatula to even it off. And then once it's dry, I'm just going to lightly sand over it to make it smooth. Then, well, it's not completely dry, but it's dry to the touch. And then I'm going to put that little knob in there, take off the excess clay that oozed out, and then that's going to dry over time. It's going to take it a little while to dry completely all the way through. I'm going to find the center in this little base block that we've created and drill a hole. And then I'm going to very lightly sand. And so that is where I fixed that little boo-boo where the paint kind of smeared a little bit. I'm going to take my drill. I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of that spindle the same size as the hole in the base. And I'm going to use a little skewer to attach the base to the spindle. If you've never seen me do this process, you know, I do this a lot to attach things because I feel like it makes it a little more sturdy. Look at the top of that spindle. I just love the rustic look of that. Okay, now that piece is finished, but we're going to add some embellishment. We're going to use these 3 colors, and we're going to start with crinoline. And I have these little antique keys that I get them on Amazon, and I've had them for quite a while. They're in my Amazon store if you're interested. I have a couple different sizes in there. Crinoline, and then I'm going to use some weathered wood and some old school, and I'm just dabbing it on in different places so you can see a little bit of all the colors shining through. Yeah, weatherwood, old school. I think I used old school, layered chocolate. I don't remember all the colors I used. Just whatever colors suit your fancy to make them look however you want. Now, this is the Shipwrecked wax by DIY. And I'm just going to put it in just a few little places because it makes it look a little tarnished. And then just dab it with a little old chippy brush. This was an old stencil brush that I turned, you know, it gets old and worn out because, you know, I don't really wash my brushes like I should. And then I don't treat my brushes very nicely sometimes, so they turn into chippy brushes. I have a whole bunch of chippy brushes. So anyway, I'm going to take this beautiful chiffon lace that I love. I get on Shein, and it's very inexpensive. And I'm just going to pull it through the 2 keys and tie a knot in it and hang it from our little spindle. And it just adds a perfect touch that I absolutely love. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to tie a knot at the top. I'm actually going to tie a knot in the middle too, so that the keys will not touch each other. They'll kind of stay apart from each other. And the lace is actually just thick enough through these small holes in the keys that it doesn't really slide around that much. But I did tie that knot in there to keep it from sliding around too much, so they would kind of stay, you know, separate. And here it is, all complete. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Last but not least, and probably my favorite, is this one that I used these 2 spindles, and I had some inspiration from a picture that I had seen, and I filled in some of these holes because when I took this chair apart, some of them came out little pieces that held the legs together came out easy, and some of them didn't. And so I just filled all those in. And I was showing you that I tied strings around where I wanted to cut those. And I cut them because I wanted some of those longer blocks and some of those shorter blocks and the flat pieces, how I wanted to put it together. So I'm showing you here that I used those 2 spindle legs to make one long piece, and that I'm using the skewer to attach it all together. So I drill a hole, I put the skewer in, and then I'm going to use the miter shears. You can use some scissors or, you know, the little wire cutters. Those work good with these too. These are the larger barbecue skewers that Dollar Tree has out in the summertime. So I'm just checking to make sure that this is all going to work. I check them all out, and then I use the Titebond Quick and Thick to adhere it all together, just like I did on the previous projects. I'm just making sure that it's all going to fit, and this is exactly how I wanted it. Perfectly. It looks like it was all one piece and supposed to be that way when I finished. Now on those flat pieces, I'm going to use these knobs that I got on clearance from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just looking to see what size drill bit I need so I can drill holes in all 3 of those flat sides. Now I'm going to use the Quick Bond to connect the pieces, and I love the Quick Bond because it sets up really quickly, and it is a nice, tight, quick hold, just like it says. And then I use just a paintbrush to remove the excess, and we don't want to waste it, so we're going to use it on the next side. Okay. And same process for this one. I'm not sure why. I guess in case you didn't understand or didn't get it with the first one, I'll show you the second one. Same thing. And I just twisted it a little bit just to make sure that the glue got everywhere. Okay, it's all put together, and you can't even see where they're connected. It looks like it's supposed to be that way. Now I'm going to take this Rust-Oleum aged gray chalk paint. I've had this in my stash, and I still have a whole bunch left in that can. It's almost full. So I poured a little bit out, and I'm using this paintbrush I got from Sammy at unicorndustdesigns.com. That's where I get all my DIY paints, IOD, all the good things from her website. So I gave this all 2 good coats. It took 2 coats to cover that, and you can't even tell where those holes were. I'm showing you that I patched it up, and you can't even tell. I don't mind those other holes because they're going to be to the back. They're going to be on the back of the wall. Now I'm going to take beadboard, and I'm going to give it a very heavy, heavy chippy brush coat. I wouldn't even call it, I am doing dry brush, but I'm giving it a very heavy coat. I want to really be able to see the white, but I want to be able to see the gray through that. So I want it to be gray, but predominantly I really want you to see that white through there. So this is what it looks like when I'm done. I love it. And I love that crack in there. Now, I'm going to take clear wax by DIY, and I'm going to wax the entire piece. I'm putting quite a bit of wax on here. I'm getting it into all of those grooves in all the spindle parts. Now I have these, I buy these on Amazon. They're very handy. They're sawtooth hangers without having to screw it. You just put them on here like this. You take your hammer and you hammer it in. Now if the wood is really hard, they don't work that great. It works better on a softer wood. So I got those all nailed in, and now we are going to do these knobs the same way we did our previous knobs, and just put the glue on the threads and use a paintbrush to, get it evenly dispersed. Spread it around and then put it where we want it, all 3 of them, and look how pretty this is. I plan to use this in the salon to hang my aprons on, so be sure that you continue to watch my future videos so you can see the final reveal of the salon suite makeover. And for some reason, this little piece spoke to me. At $7.99, it was a little more than I probably would have paid at my thrift store at home, but I knew that I could do something with that and make it beautiful. This is what I ended up with, and this is what we're going to flip today. I'm going to take some petticoat pink. I'm going to add just a little bit of layered chocolate. These are DIY paints to make a little bit of a rose color paint. I'm going to give this 2 coats of paint off camera because I don't want you to have to endure watching me do that. But this is what it looks like when I'm finished. I'm going to take the IOD Lattice Rose paint inlay. See how smart I am to do that so I can remember to tell you which one it is. So I'm looking to see, I love the way that this looks with that pink in the background. My friend Myra over at Farm Fresh Design 59. That didn't sound right. Farm Fresh Designs 59. She helped me decide what color should go behind this because she's used this inlay before. And so thank you, Myra, for helping me decide what color I should put behind the inlay. This turns out absolutely gorgeous. Now, I want to tell you that you do need to trim off that little piece around the edge. Otherwise, I had to cut it again because I cut it too short. I didn't take into account that I needed to trim off that extra little piece. Okay, I'm going to put these with the stripe on the side. I couldn't decide if I wanted to put them horizontal or vertically. So here I am. I'm just showing you how. Do I want to put it like that or do I want to put it like this? And ultimately I decided to put them vertically. And so I'm just pressing down around the edges to make some marks on there so I can see where to cut it out. I'm sizing it up to make sure they fit. And then to put the inlays on, we're just going to use a mister bottle to mist it with water and set it aside. And then I'm going to put a nice even coat of paint, fresh paint, on my piece where I'm going to put the inlay. And then I'm going to gently lay the inlay down. And it's damp and it's much easier to work with. And then I'm just going to make sure I don't have any wrinkles in it. That's very easy to work with. And then I'm just going to take a little soft cloth or paper towel and just dab it down, push it down into that paint a little bit, try not to move it or smear it. And then I'm going to spritz it down with a little bit, or a little bit more water. Oh, now I'm taking it off. Oh, it's the next day. It's the next day. I sprayed it down with some water and I let it sit for about 10 minutes because I had let it sit overnight. And then I just pulled it off and look how beautiful. That pink was a great choice. And now I'm going to show you that I'm pulling back. I had already wet that and let it sit. And I'm pulling this back on the sides. I did both ends of this piece with that. And I'm going to use my heat gun to dry it because that is like having wet paint on there. So it does need to dry thoroughly before you touch it or anything, or you will smear that paint. Now I'm going to take my little handy dandy finger sander that I ordered off Temu. It was much cheaper than trying to order it off Amazon. That's the only other place I've ever tried to look at one. But it was very cheap. It came with a lot of little pieces of sandpaper with it. And I'm just going to sand around the edges to bring back in a little bit of that black. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And then I'm going to wipe it off with one of those really soft cloths that you get in the car detailing department at Dollar Tree. Now, these are from the IOD Olive Crest mold. I poured those with some resin, and I'm going to use crinoline. It's not much different than the color of this resin, but I'm going to use this rough brush. It's not a smooth brush. You see my bristles falling out, and you can see the color's not that much different, and I'm just going to swirl it. I'm dabbing and swirling and dabbing and swirling because I want, you know, to have a little bit of texture or whatever. I don't care that it's really smooth, and I want the paint to get all down in all the details. So I'm going to do all 3 pieces. I'm going to do the sides and the top and with that. Now, once it's dry, I'm going to go in with vintage linen, and I'm going to just dab it all around and kind of wipe some of it back, and just because I decided I really didn't like it so yellow, but I did want some of that in there. Now, that little girl you see on there was a sticker, and I've used some of those in the past. I got them, I think, on Amazon, and they're just little tiny stickers, and they're all little Victorian looking girls, and I just cut her out. It was a little bit too big, and I just cut her out to fit, and then stuck it in the middle of that piece, and then I white waxed everything. And I'm going to use clear wax to seal our inlay and the paint on this. Now, I'm just smeared it on my hand too, because I got a little too much. And I'm going to do this entire thing, all the paint in the inlay. I made sure that this inlay was completely dry. It had dried for several hours. And then, now that everything's all waxed up, I'm going to use Tite Bond Quick and Thick Glue. And then I'm going to I'm going to use my paintbrush today and smooth it out on the edges so that it gets all the way out to the edges so that it holds good. And then I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue in the middle so it'll hold quick. Let me get it turned around the correct way, and we're going to put her down there right in the middle. I'm going to do the same thing with both of these little side pieces. I just think this is adorable. But then I decided that that back piece up there looked a little bit naked, and so I used some of that crochet lace ribbon that I love so much from Dollar Tree, and some chiffon ribbon that I got off Shein, and I just made a simple little, it's just a simple little bow with just, you know, cutting a little piece of the ribbon and pinching it in the middle, and I'm going to glue that right up there on the back. And then I had this extra little piece of resin poured from the rosettes, and no, is it the rosettes? I think it's the rosettes mold. It was just in my stash, and instead of a button or something like that, I decided I was going to just pop that right in the middle of there, and I love how this turned out. Let me get all the glue strings off and all the little strings off, and let me pet and pamper it just a little bit, and then we're done, and obviously I'm happy with it. Okay, here's my little table. It's hard to tell out here in the sunshine the color. It was more of a grayish, and I really kind of like blue gray, a gray with a blue undertone. So I got this sander. I ordered it from Amazon, and it's just a little hand sander, and it uses the same sandpaper that my orbital sander uses, and it just velcros on there. I'm just going to give this a little bit of a light sand. I washed it down already and cleaned it, but I want to make sure all the hairspray, all the dust, everything is off of it. So I'm just going to give it a light sand. I'm not really trying to take anything off except a little grime. Okay, so light sanding. The legs got sanded, the whole piece. I'm going to take one of those soft little cloths that you get from Dollar Tree and just wipe it down really good all over so that there's no little, you know, pieces of residue to get in my paint. Now, I've got all my supplies here together. I'm going to use Rust-Oleum chalked paint in the color Aged Gray. This is a beautiful blue-based gray. I love it. I'm going to stir it up really good I'm going to use my sponge applicator. It's a really wide one. It worked really great for this project. I'm just going to wipe it off that little stir stick. Don't want to waste any paint. Then I just poured some in a little plastic container, so it makes it easier to apply. And I'm just going to give it 2 coats of paint. It was really hot and really windy, and it was drying this paint almost as fast as I could apply it. Then my husband started mowing the grass while I'm painting my project outside. Yes, he did. I'm very grateful that he mowed the yard, but I had to take this project inside, which is fine. But I really liked the lighting out here was bright, a lot of shadows because it's so bright, but it also was drying super fast. I was really, really loving that. And then I took a smaller sponge brush for the legs, and I stippled onto the legs because I didn't like those streaky marks it left there. The top piece had a little bit of wood grain to it. The little piece that goes in the bottom, I don't know if you noticed that in the original picture, there's a shelf on the bottom. It has that same little bit of wood grain, so the paint looked nicer on it. On the legs, it just looked a little streaky. So I'm just going to dab, dab, stipple, stipple. I would put the paint on, get it on there, and then I would just dab, 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 dab all over. Now we're taking it inside. We're using Rust-Oleum in linen white. We have 2 good coats of the gray on here. It's completely dry, and we're taking an old, rusted, crusty chippy brush. This is the best paint brush for the job, and I'm going to dry brush it. I'm getting most of the paint off on that brown, thick, super thick brown paper down there, and I'm just hitting the edges, almost like I just want to outline it. So I'm getting most of the paint on the sides of this paintbrush, and when I wipe it off, I wipe on the sides. So you can see here that I'm trying to outline the edges right now, and then the bristles are just going to lightly get on the rest of it. I love the look of this, and I did it on this entire piece. I did that way. I'm going to show you a little bit that I did the top, but I did these sides. I'm going to do a beautiful stamp on this part right here that I'm doing now shortly. The legs, I just had a little paint on my brush, and I just swiped it back and forth all the way around the legs. I just kind of gave it a whipping. That's what you get in Texas. You get a whipping. I don't know what you got where you live, but in Texas, we got whoopings. Okay, here we go with the top. I'm going to do that same kind of method on the edges, but I took long strokes, so I didn't have globs in the middle. But I'm going to give you an up close where I stumbled because I'm clumsy. This is not it. It's on the other side. And I got a little right here. Well, right here somewhere. It's right here. Okay, I got a little clumsy. But I just went with it on the sides, smeared it in with my finger a little bit, and it turned out great. So, there's no boo-boos when you're doing rustic. But I love this dry brushed. It's a heavy dry brush, but I love this look. I love the gray and the white. This is so me. I love how this turned out. Next, I'm going to take my little finger sander, and it's like a 220 grit paper on there, and I'm going to so lightly, ever so lightly, you can see some of that excess falling off, and I had to go get the little mini vac and suck all that up. But I'm just trying to just make it a little bit smooth for that stamp, and I just want it to be smooth. I don't want it to be any roughness, but I don't want to take any of that paint off. I'm not going for a distressed rustic look on this. I want it to be beautiful. Now I'm going to take this Varathane finishing wax I picked up at Home Depot for an excellent price. I think it was $16 for this huge can of it. And I'm using this, I think this is by Folk Art, this wax brush. I've had it for years. I did my piano with it when I painted my piano, and it works fantastic. This wax is fantastic. I did 2 coats of this wax. I let it set overnight, and then I did a second coat. I did a second coat only on the top and the shelf because I do use this table. This table is a very well-used piece in my salon. This is by the door where people drop their purses, their keys, and I put my laptop if I'm bringing it to upload videos. This stamp is by IOD. It's the La Campagna set. I'm going to use some IOD black ink. I'm going to ink this one particular little stamp up in all different ways to put it on here. Now, I'm only going to stamp the parts that are going to touch the rim. So I inked that up. I'm going to lay it on here very carefully. You can see that I have ink all over the edges of that. I'm being careful not to press down on those edges that have the ink because I did not have a wet wipe handy to wipe that off, but I quickly went and picked one up. So I'm just going to randomly place, I'm not randomly placing, I'm strategically placing this stamp all over this little, and I see how I decided where I was going to put it before I inked it up. And then I go all the way down there, and then I kind of go back and just do little pieces of the leaf and stamp it in some of those empty spaces so the entire piece is covered just like this. Is that not so gorgeous? It is simple. It doesn't have a lot of molds on it. It doesn't have a lot of color on it, but I absolutely am in love with my new table. So let me know what you think about it. Would you have added more color to it? Wait till you see the Salon Suite in the end, and you're going to love it just as much as I do. This is absolutely the easiest DIY in this video. A client gave me this gorgeous cross a couple of years ago for Christmas. I really hated taking it out of the salon and making it over, but she is going to absolutely love how I did this. She also watches some of my videos. Hello, Louisa, if you're watching. Sorry that I'm making over this cross, but you're going to love it when I get finished. So I just sanded it down just to make it smooth. That was my intention, not to get rid of the lettering, but to make it smooth. And then I have this beautiful decoupage paper. You may remember the sign I made a couple weeks ago, maybe last week. I probably made it a couple weeks ago. It was in last week's video with this same paper. I absolutely love this rose, and I thought it would be perfect on this cross because the cross represents to me the death of Christ, my Savior. He died on that cross for me and you. Even if you don't believe it, he still died for you. And he is the Rose of Sharon, the bright and morning star. And I'm going to move on with this voiceover before I get emotional, because I get emotional when I talk about the love that Jesus has for me and the love I have for him. So you see that I just cut it out to fit this cross, the shape of the cross, and I'm just going to put a nice thick, smooth layer of Mod Podge. Don't say it yet. You're going to see. Okay. I lay it down, and I start ironing right on top of it. It's a pretty thick piece of paper, so I didn't use any parchment paper. But, yeah, right about here, right here to be exact, I realized I did not paint the cross first. And then I'm like, well, too late. Let's go on with it. So I ironed it down, and you can see, I can see faintly through there some of that lettering. But in the end, you cannot see it enough for it to matter, and it also just looks like it's part of the paper. So, all is well. It's not anything worth crying over or not using. It ends up turning out beautiful. And I kept it very simple. You can see here, I'm going to just sand off the excess of this paper with my finger sander. If you guys don't have one of these finger sanders, it's worth every penny you spend on it. It works marvelous. Then I'm going to take that gray wax that I created with a little bit of gray paint in the white wax, and it does dry fast. The paint in it makes it dry fast, so you have to work kind of in small sections and work fast with it. And then on top, I'm using some clear wax over my decoupage paper to seal it. And this is how it turned out. And you really cannot see the lettering through there unless you absolutely know and you look really close. But I think this cross, in its simplicity, with that rose right in the center, I don't even know if that's a rose, with that flower right in the center, is absolutely stunning. Okay, next, I've had this vase in my Salon. And I just had it up on a shelf. I brought it home. I cleaned it up really good. It's glass. It's beautiful. And we are going to put an IOD mold on it. This is the Frames 2 mold. And I have this little sticker. I've had these in my stash for a couple years. And we're going to use that little lady today. I'm going to put some cornstarch in my mold so that the DOS Air clay does not stick to it. So then I'm going to just, dump out the excess because we don't want it to be all dry. I think when you work with the clay and it's super dry is when it cracks. So I noticed that the DOS Air Dry clay is a little more moist than some of the other air dry clays that I've tried. And I think that that's why it doesn't crack as bad. So I'm just going to push it down in there and try to make it as flat on the back as I can. My friend Myra from Farm Fresh Designs 59 is the absolute queen of air dry clay in molds. Now, I'm just using that brayer because I saw somebody else do that. I wish I could remember who I saw do it. If y'all have seen someone do that, leave it in the comments below. Maybe it's the same person I saw do it. This mold was a little bit big to use that with, but it did work pretty good. I could see with smaller ones where it would work really well. I'm just going to pop it out of there, and there's always a little bit of crusty on the edges on mine, and so I just tap it under. Like I'm tapping it and kind of pushing it under. And that works really good because it's still soft. Now I'm going to take beadboard by DIY. I get all my DIY paints from Sammy, www.unicorndustdesigns. You can always find her link in my description box below. With a really soft paintbrush, I'm going to apply that beadboard all over this mold in all the little details, way down in all those little nooks and crannies, and across the frame part. And later in the video, you will see I decided I didn't want it white. And I end up painting it that aged gray by Rust-Oleum. I did not show that on camera because painting can be redundant and take up a lot of time. And there are other things I would rather show you than me painting. Now, this is still wet. You can see it's very, very fragile. I'm going to put this cloth down to keep my vase from rolling around. It still wanted to roll around. I had to really figure out how to keep it from rolling around. I'm trying to make sure that I have it centered on the cloth. It's still just a little wet to flip over in my hand, so I take my heat gun and I dry the paint. I'm not trying to dry the mold, just the paint, so that I can flip it over in my hand like a pancake and put some Type Bond, quick and thick. I put that on the screen for you guys because sometimes I call this glue quick bond. It is not quick bond. It is Type Bond, quick and thick. I'm trying to use a shortcut. Now I'm finding the center of the front because it is beveled. You see how that top is kind of beveled? So the front's a little bit shorter than the top. So I just flop it on there and I tap around the edges and all across it very gently to make sure that it is stuck like Chuck. Okay, now I'm going to try to keep it from rolling around until it dries because that glass is so slick and that glue is so snotty. It is trying to slide around. Does that remind you of a song from the 70s? Slip sliding around. Okay, I won't sing for you. Plus, we don't want to get copyrighted. Okay, it taped. I let it sit overnight. It's dry. I put the tape on pretty loosely because I did not want to mess up or smush my frame because it is gorgeous. I put on this little sticker. It's just a peel back sticker. Just peel the back off, stick it down, which I'm glad that it's white behind it and I didn't do it gray first because the gray behind it would have muted it too much. So I just stick it down to my frame. It wrinkled a tiny little bit in some places, but I think that just makes it look even better. It gives it a little more character. Makes it, I don't know, makes it look old. And she looks old-fashioned. Now I decided this is where I decided, I had the gray. I painted it gray already. And then I take the white wax and I use a generous amount of the white wax with this makeup brush. And I apply it and get it all in. Well, I couldn't get it in all of those little details. So I ended up getting a chippy brush or a stencil brush. I think it was a stencil brush. Let's see. Wait for it. There, a stencil brush. And I get quite a bit of that wax on my brush and then get it down in there. It's a really creamy, smooth white wax from DIY. And so it goes down in there. Now I'm just taking a very soft, it is most likely a scrap of an old t-shirt that I cut up, and I buff away on the top, and it looks like a little piece of aged concrete, like a statue. I love it. It is so gorgeous. I love it. It's beautiful. I cannot wait to sit it back up on that shelf and have a brand new look. I cannot take the shelf down and bring it home and redo it, so I'm going to redo it in the salon. Stay tuned for that. Okay, next DIY. This one was a little hard to record, so I apologize. So stick with me, hang with me, use your imagination. I have these 2 pieces of wood, and I'm going to make a caddy to keep all my hair supplies in. So I'm going to cut that off first, that side off first, with my scroll saw. And yes, I have this inside my craft cottage. It has a vacuum that catches all the sawdust, which is amazing. And I'm just taking it slow and easy, and I'm going to cut this side, and that little lever I just pulled just blows the sawdust away from me. It blows it underneath. Well, if it goes underneath that, where that blade is, it just sucks all the sawdust underneath and into the vacuum. It's so cool. My former scroll saw did not have that, and I had to use it outside. And I didn't use it like I will this one. I just got this one for Christmas. So, okay, that is completed. Now I'm going to use that piece to trace the other side so they're identical, because I'm not that great at drawing symmetrical things. So now we're just going to speed this up and get this side cut and cut it as well. Then I'm going to drill out. My husband has this amazing little, I don't know, we just were calling it a paddle borer. I don't know what it's called, but you can drill that type of hole that I'm showing you. It's not really a hole, but you can bore out a round circle. And that's what I wanted to do, because I'm going to use a spindle as my handle. Surprise, surprise. So this is how it works. You just put it in there and you use it like a drill, and look, that spindle's going to fit in there perfect. Fortunately, the spindle was the size of the paddle that he had. Now, I took this outside, and with my orbital sander, I sanded all the edges. I sanded everything smooth. I'm showing you here the dimensions, because occasionally someone will want to know the dimensions of the wood that I'm using in my projects. So you can just stop it, pause it, write it down if you're interested in making yours the exact same size I'm making mine for some reason. I did not put a bottom in this caddy because I'm going to set it on my little cabinet, and I don't need a bottom in it. If I need a bottom in it, I'll put one in at a later date. I used this sponge. It was round. I got it on Shein, and I got them in a package. I cut it in half, and I just pounced it. I used it. I sponge painted these so that it would have a little texture to it. I'm going to use the grain sack stripe from the IOD Mercantile stamp. I'm going to use Stone Gray ink by IOD, and I'm going to put it over here on the side, because I'm going to put some lettering. You can see the letters over on the left. We're going to put those on the left side of this. This will be the side that shows. Where it sits on my little dresser. This is the end that will show. This is the IOD typesetting stamp. It's a beautiful stamp set of letters. I don't know if it's still available, if you can still get it, if it's still in the shops, if you can get it from someone. But I'm going to spell out Salon. I'm going to use Petticoat Pink, and I'm going to sponge it on the letters and then put it down here. I want it to not be real stark. I want it to be soft. Soft it is. And I love the way this turned out. I'm going to wipe this off really good with a wet wipe and clean my stamps and take good care of them. If you're good to them, they will be good to you. On this end, this is the end that will face the wall. Few people will ever see it, and I just did it like that. Now I'm going to take this same stamp I used on my table with some black ink, and this will be the front that faces outward, and I'm going to do the same thing on this that I did on the table. I'm going to ink it up, and I'm going to start with the entire full stamp right in the center, and I'm going to work my way out. just stamping bits and pieces of it how I think it looks good. And like I said, I'm going to clean it off with a wet wipe each time, and then I'm going to lay my stamp out to see how I like it, and then I'll ink it, and then I'll go back in and just put bits and pieces in there where I feel like it needs a little flower, a little leaf, whatever. That's how it looks when I finish. The other side, I'm going to use Kindest Regards. This is one of my very favorite stamps IOD has. And I'm going to, excuse me, stamp it on here for just a simple stamp. I'm going to use my brayer tool. This wood was a tiny bit warped. It was some scrap wood that I got from my client, Mr. Yankel. Now, on the front side, I'm going to take Petticoat Pink. I'm going to water it down. I'm going to make a watercolor. I've done this several times on my channel with the stamps and some paint, and it's such a beautiful look. You can still see the stamp through the paint because it's very watered down. And the stamps are so, the ink sets up so permanent that it doesn't smear if you let it dry completely. And this was completely dry. I'm going to take Farm Fresh by DIY and water it down and do the leaves. And I think this turned out perfect. This is perfect. This is so my heart for decorating. So my salon is going to be, it's going to be gorgeous. It's been pretty simple and plain. You saw it in a previous video. I should do that little video again in another video. I should add that clip. Now I'm just going to dry brush a little pink on that Kindest Regards side. I used that gray wax that I mixed with a little bit of white wax and did the spindle. I just waxed that spindle with that after I had painted it with the white. And then I drilled holes in the end because I'm going to use my little skewer method as dowel sticks to secure that even more. Now I'm going to use some of Dollar Tree's tumbling tower blocks to secure this because that wood is kind of thin and I was afraid if I tried to nail it or screw it, it would split the wood. So I just glued them on, and then I'm going to glue it to the sides. Now I'm going to use that Tite Bond Quick and Thick, and it is such an awesome hold and it dries pretty fast. So I feel confident this is going to hold up. So I'm going to use mostly the Tite Bond, and I'm going to add just a little bit of hot glue so that that will hold it while I'm working. I did put all the sides together to make, you know, it's going to be four-sided. It's a caddy. I did two sides and the dowel, and then added the last side. You can see here. I did go back in and paint those tower blocks with the beadboard. And this is how it turned out when it's all put together. I cleared it all with that Varathane wax like I did the table. Let me know how you think this turned out. And it's going to be so beautiful with all my Moroccan oil products in there because they are teal bottles, and it's just going to look beautiful. Hello friends, in this video I am finishing up the Salon Suite makeover. Who's ready for the final reveal? Sit back and watch as I DIY the final creations to put up in the salon, and then the tour of the salon final makeover. Let's get started. I've had these cute little coasters for about 5 years in my salon, so I thought I would just use my heat gun to remove the cork and flip them over. We could use the inside. So I used my Tite Bond Quick and Thick to adhere them, and I like the cork because it's very absorbent, which is what the coasters are supposed to do. I used a little bit of hot glue to give me an immediate hold. And then I decided I was going to put some stamps on. Now this ink is permanent ink, and so I'm just going to use this little butterfly from the Pastiche stamp from IOD, and I'm just going to randomly stamp one with the China Blue ink on each one. I did not seal these. If that ink runs or does anything crazy, then I'll just get some new coasters. I'm just repurposing these, so I'm not going to be real pedantic about them, but I think they turned out cute, and you'll see that they look really cute in the salon at the final reveal at the end of this video, so stay tuned. This is another super easy, quick, and easy makeover. Okay, I picked this up at Goodwill for 99 cents, and it was super cute, as is, but I'm going to take off this white raffia ribbon and replace it with some cuter, softer, shabby chic lace ribbon. I'm just going to remove that very simply, throw that over there. I'm probably not going to reuse that. I made a little resin flower, and I'm going to paint that in Petticoat Pink by DIY. I get all my DIY paints from Sammy over at unicorndustdesigns.com. She has DIY paints and IOD products. You want to go over and check her website out. I always have it linked in my description box below. Now, I got this lace from Shein, and I'm going to use a combination of Titebond and hot glue to adhere this. Now, I don't always do things the easiest way, but this is how I did it. I used a little hot glue and a little bit of Titebond. Now, if I would have just put the Titebond all around where I wanted it to, and then gone back and put the hot glue where I wanted it, then that probably would have been easier. But, you know, I don't always do things the easy way. But it worked, and I got it done, and I just kept going all the way around with this beautiful lace. This is kind of almost like a cotton. I guess it is more like a cotton lace, so it's a little bit thicker, and it's really soft. It's really pretty, and I love it. And I've used it a lot in the salon decor. So I'm just making it all nice and secure. I'm going to use this for my pens and pencils and things like that that sit on my little, it's not really a desk, but I use it as a desk. You will see in the reveal. And then I'm just going to make a little shabby bow with, you know, my favorite chiffon lace and a couple pieces of that and the cotton ribbon. I'm going to take a little piece of embroidery thread and cinch it up and tie it in the middle. I'm going to glue that to this little tin. I think it's maybe a planter. I'm not real sure, but it's super cute. It's very lightweight. I'm going to glue it right there, and then I'm going to glue that little flower medallion type thing. It's part of the rosettes mold right to the center. And then I decided it was just a little too plain. I'm going to zhuzh it up just a little bit with a little bit of that ribbon, and I didn't want to just put it on there straight across, so I twisted it a little bit and left it a little bit loose, and I just did that all the way around because, you know, we're kind of going for a little bit of a cottage shabby chic look. So I just this is very much what I did in the 90s as well. It's a little bit of a throwback, but I love this look. And there we go. And this is what it looks like all finished up. I've had these huge metal scissors in my salon I found at Michael's on clearance a couple years ago. And very rarely do you find scissors that actually look like hair cutting scissors. They usually look like sewing scissors. So I was really thrilled. So I mixed a custom gray color that I liked, and I painted the entire thing with that gray. And then I'm going to darken it up a little bit, and I'm going to just almost outline it. I'm not really dry brushing it. I'm just getting the bulk of the color off. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm not dry brushing. I have plenty of paint on my brush. I'm just outlining it. And I'm using old school now, but I did not clean my paintbrush out. So I'm just trying to really darken up that gray and really then go back in a few spots and where it would be like dark shadows and give it another little outline. I think I did this on almost all the way around, actually, because I like that little dark edge. It always makes it look like it's outlined. Like when I was a kid and I colored, or even when I still color, I like to outline with a little bit darker color than what I've colored the bulk of it with. So that's what I did here on the inside and the outside. And then I'm going to take the rosette mold from IOD, and this might be rosettes too, I can't remember. And then I'm going to put some cornstarch in the mold, and I'm going to take the DOS air dry clay and just press it in there all the way down. And then I'm going to take that little brayer tool. I really can't remember who I saw do that, but it's kind of genius on these smaller molds. And then I'm just going to take this little tool. I don't even know where I got it. It came with something I bought. And I'm just going to make it nice and flat and smooth and use that little edge that's on there naturally. And then I'm just going to bend it, and it just kind of flops right out of there. And then I always take my finger and kind of roll that little edge under, because sometimes there's some little crusties. And now I'm going to use some Type Bond Quick and Thick to adhere it right there where that screw should be on the scissors. Now on this, I was being a little facetious, and I was like, okay, to my husband, that is not where the screw should be. That is way too low. Yeah, well, it's just for looks. Okay, so then I decide I'm going to paint it white, and then I decide I don't really like it white, and I come in with some Silver Leaf Rub and Buff, and this made it so beautiful. I just took it on my fingertips and rubbed. I was just going to rub it on the high points at first, just a few, and then I thought it was so pretty that I just went to town and I just rubbed it all over it, and it really turned out pretty. Let me know what you think about this. I'm a silver girl, not a gold. So I love my grays and golds. And then I took this kind of blush color chiffon ribbon, and there were some holes at the top of this. There was a wire hanger previously that I took off, and I'm going to just go ahead and utilize those holes, and I'm going to pull this chiffon ribbon through the holes to make a little hanger. I didn't really mean to get the white through there. It just sort of attached itself and came on through. And I'm just trying to figure out how tall I want it, because I'm going to tie a knot in the top. And I'm using my little tweezers because, you know, it's kind of hard to get my little fingers up, my little fat fingers up in there. So just make a little knot so that that doesn't go through the hole. And there you go. Now, I haven't cut the other end yet because I want to see how long I want it. I'm going to go ahead and tie the knot first. And then, see, I thought ahead this time. This is not the norm for me, just so you know. And then I'm going to see how long I want it. And then I'm going to cut and tie the other knot. That was a smart move. That was a smart move, Kendra. See, I don't always think that way first. So I was kind of proud of myself for that one. And there we go. Now I'm going to take a little piece of the white chiffon ribbon, and I'm going to just tie it right around there. And then I'm going to take a couple of little pieces of the white and the blush and just make a little messy bow. I'm really into doing these little messy bows these days, and they're just so easy and so cute. I'm just going to put a little couple pieces on there, and then that piece that I wrapped around, I'm going to tie in the center. Just tie it up in the center there and fluff it, and then trim it down to size, the size that I think it looks good on there. And I'm going to put a tad little bit of hot glue around, just a tiny little bit, to secure it so it doesn't slide down. And this one is done. first item that I'm using out of our collab materials is this 18-inch wood plank. We'll all be using this exact same plank, but let's see how we create it differently. I have this beautiful decoupage paper that I bought from Sammy over at www.unicorndustdesigns.com. She has beautiful decoupage papers, DIY paints, all the things you need to craft with. So go check her website out. It'll be linked in the description box if you forget. I'm just cutting this paper down to size. I put the part of it that I want to show on the board where I wanted it and cut it out. I painted it white with beadboard, just one kind of messy coat. And now I'm going to cover it completely with a nice thick layer of Mod Podge. Nice, evenly, and smooth over the entire surface of this painted white wood plank. It is completely dry, and I'm going to iron it on. I'm going to use the iron-on method. Now, when I put the iron to it, the heat reactivates that Mod Podge, and it's going to give you a beautiful wrinkle-free finish. And I will end up sealing it with some DIY clear wax at the end. It's all nice and smooth. Now, to get all those little edges nice and crisp and get all that excess paper off, I'm just going to use this awesome little finger sander going in a downward motion all the way around on all the sides to get it all even. Now I'm pulling out my little bow dabra that my friend Brandy gave me from making it my own DIYs, and I'm going to just use these little scraps of fabric. I end up not using that rose-colored chiffon lace and using the canvas drop cloth. The canvas drop cloth was an item that we were required to use as an embellishment or just in one of our DIYs. So you see I'm putting that lace on there, but I ended up making taking it apart and remaking it without that. And I end up using some of the fabric that I used in the hanger. I didn't want to show that all on this clip because the process is the same in how to make the bow, and the video is going to end up being way too long if I show redundant steps. Now I'm clearing it with the clear wax with this awesome makeup brush that is so wonderful to use for waxes. It's awesome for stenciling. You can also use it to put your makeup on. I've never done that. I only use it in the craft cottage. This is some fabric that I had in my salon suite at one time used as a curtain. I took it down and washed it and it shrank, and then the curtain didn't work on my the window on my door anymore. So I brought it home, and guess what? It works great for crafting. So I'm just going to glue it and staple it to the back of this plank to use as a hanger. This is actually going to go back in it's going to go in my salon suite. All of the items that I create today will be going in my salon suite. This is a part of the salon suite makeover series. Now I'm going to just staple that little messy shabby bow up in the corner, and this DIY is done. Let me know what you think about this, and I can't wait to see what the other girls, Natalie and Leanne, did with their plank of wood. The next item that we have that is all alike are these candle tins. Different ones have different texture, but this is the one that I'm going to use. I have these little, I think these were supposed to be apples. They came from Dollar Tree, multiples in a package. I cut that stem off, sanded it down, and that's what I have. I pulled this knob out of my stash to use as well. I'm going to use the Dark and Decrepit by DIY. It's like a stain. I'm going to give every one of these little wood pieces a coat of this and let it dry completely. And so while that's drying, I will go on with the rest of this DIY. Now I'm going to take it outside and I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Cover Ultra Matte White spray paint. I'm not the greatest spray painter in the world, but hey, it worked to get this metal a good coat. Now I'm going to take beadboard by DIY and I'm going to give everything a good coat with that paint. Now I'm going to Mod Podge on the inside of this shiny silver lid because I didn't spray paint it with just a regular old cheap kitchen napkin. Now I have this sponge that I got off Shein and I wrapped it up in some saran wrap, and this worked really, really good. Now, I didn't really even care if this had some wrinkles or it had some texture. It's the inside lid, and most likely it will never be opened, but I thought it would give it a little bit of a frosted look with that silver shining through a little bit, the texture of the napkin, and it turned out fine. It turned out great. It was what I expected, and a little bit more. So then I just take my scissors and tear it and just get all that off however I can. I'm not being very pedantic about it because this is, like I said, it's going to be on the inside. Now, if you're going to use it and you're going to be opening it, you may want to take a little bit more time to make it more durable, or not even do this step at all. Just leave it silver. Then I'm going to go around the edges with the Mod Podge that was left on my brush and just seal those little scrappy pieces down. Now, I'm going to take Petticoat Pink by DIY, and I'm going to dry brush the inside, the outside, the lid, this entire piece with Petticoat Pink. And while you're watching me do that, I'm going to talk to you about this 5th Sunday Craft with Friends collab. So today I have my friend Leanne from Simply Enjoying Crafting and Natalie from Sparks of Joy Studio. They are beautiful ladies inside and out. And I want you to check out their channels, check out their videos, and we also have a giveaway, a $25 gift certificate to Hobby Lobby and that beautiful candle lamp that you saw. The Hobby Lobby gift card is inspired to help you to buy the candle of your choice or scent of your choice to go under that lamp. I have a couple of these in my home and I simply love them. All you need to do is leave a comment in each one of our videos to be entered into the contest. We will draw on July 7th and announce those winners. You will be able to find all those details in the description box below. I'm giving all of this that I painted with a clear coat of DIY wax. A coat of clear DIY wax. Let me try that again. And then we're just going to use some Titebond and some hot glue, and we're going to glue those little apples, our sawed down apples, on the bottom for legs. And then we're going to do the same thing for all 4 of them. Not going to show you all of those. Same process for all 4 of them. I'm going to put them, this one down, put one across, you see, right there, in a little diamond shape or square shape. Do the same thing with this top one. I did not put any hot glue on this. That Titebond Quick and Thick is a really good hold. And I'm really not going to be lifting the lid off with this knob. It is really for looks. But you could put a screw in it. You could do a lot of things to make it secure if you wanted to. I'm going to take a little bit of this lace that I got off Shein. I love the chiffon lace. And then I found this beautiful little lace that they had. And I'm just going to cut a little strip of it. I'm going to tie it around this knob, tie it in just a little knot. And then I'm going to add a little embellishment. One of the other things that we were required to use was some brown paper bag or some brown paper wrap, packing paper. Goodness, I don't have words today. And so I crinkled this up, and then I used some chalk on it to give it kind of an old look. And then I'm going to glue that paper down on this little wooden tag that I had in my stash that came from Amazon. I'm using the Titebond to glue it down. I'm just going to glue it and rub it down, and then I'm going to use the finger sander to remove the excess paper off the edges. And then I'm going to take this chalk that I had in my stash. My cousin's wife, Lori, well, I call her my cousin because she's a doll. I painted the backside with the Petticoat Pink just to bring it all together. And here's the chalk. She gave me a whole bunch of this. She was getting rid of a bunch of her craft supplies, and of course she thought of me. So we bartered. I gave her some free haircuts, and she gave me some art supplies. And so I love this chalk, and I just used that dauber to just kind of, dirty it up a little. And I used a pencil and I wrote Salon on the tag. You can't see it real well, but it shows up in person. You can see it a little bit when I'm trying to put the tag on this. And I just put it through that chiffon lace and it stayed, that ribbon, chiffon ribbon. So you can't really see in the pictures that you can see the word Salon, but it does show up. And so let me know what you think about this one. And did I do this little tin any justice? My next DIY is one of our required items that we all have is an 8x10 frame. I'm curious to see what kind of 8x10 frame they are going to use because that one was our choice of 8x10 frame. I'm going to use some IOD paint inlays. I'm going to use a beadboard by DIY. I'm going to paint the frame and the glass in that picture frame. from that picture frame. Cut these IOD inlays down as closely to the image as I could get. And then I'm spritzing the painted side, the side that has the paint on it, with a little bit of water. I'm spraying it down with a sprayer. And then I have already given this one coat of beadboard. Now I'm going to do a thin coat. I watered it down a little bit. I don't know if I got it on camera, but I spritzed a little water on it to make it thin. I did a thin coat. Not a thin coat of paint. The paint was thin, is what I'm trying to say. Let me get my words out here. Stay with me, people. Then I'm just laying these paint inlays in. I'm taking a tiny little piece of a paper towel, and I'm just dabbing the excess water off and making sure that that paint inlay is pushed down into that paint really well. Then I'm going to set it aside and let it dry while I finish the rest of my DIY here. Because the next process was a little bit time consuming, but turns out so amazingly beautiful. Okay, this is an IOD mold. I believe it's called Olive Crest. And I am going to put some cornstarch in there because I'm going to use some DOS air dry clay. I mostly love to use resin because it's just an easier process for me. But I'm using the air dry clay, and my friend Myra at Farm Fresh Design 59 is the air dry clay mold queen. Oh my goodness, if you've not watched her, you need to go over and check out her channel because she is amazing at this. She can whip these things out in no time. So I'm just using this little spatula. She uses an old gift card. You can use anything that's basically flat, like a scraper. And so I'm just using this, and I'm not going to show you the whole process because it was wearing me out, so I don't want to wear you out. But anyway, it needs to be flat on the back. It has this little, the IOD molds have this little micro edge on it that helps. It's kind of like keeps it from spilling out. It just has an edge to it. It makes it so nice. They are more pricey than the other molds out on the markets, but they are so much better, so much details, and so much easier to work with. So these are all the molds that I did. Go me. Okay. So now I got the Type Bond Quick and Thick, and it is quick and it is thick. But I poured it in a little silicone muffin mold. I always want to call them a muffin tin. That's not a tin. It's silicone. And I'm just going to brush it on the back, getting all the way out to the edges. And it is important that you push it down on there, especially around the edges, so that all of those edges. But you don't want to push it too hard because you may ruin the image, all those beautiful details in the imagery of these beautiful molds. So you want to be really gentle with them. They're very fragile when you use the air dry clay, but you do want to press down the edges so that it gets a good hold. Now I've gotten them all glued down, and I'm going to take beadboard, the same color that I used on the frame, and I'm a really soft paintbrush, and I'm going in and I'm painting all the molds, getting in all the details. And then around the edges, you saw me kind of mash it right there. I do kind of mash the paint into the edge so that it makes sure that it is no gaps between the mold and the frame. So I did this to every single mold on this frame. I have this on the top and the one on the bottom, and then those two you see on the left and the right are on the left and the right on the bottom as well. So all of it gets this same little paint job, and there it is all finished. The magic of editing. Okay, so you're going to see my little happy dance here. Yay. Okay, so now let's get to the paint inlay. This is my favorite part. So we're going to take that, I'm showing you that it's the glass. I'm going to take my sprayer. This is one of those spritzers that you just hold it down and the water continues to spray. Love it. Got it on Amazon. It came 2 in a pack, and it wasn't really that expensive. And then I'm going to take my paper towel. I'm just going to dab it a little bit, get all the excess water off. And then I use a little pair of tweezers to help myself pull it up, and then just pull that back. And would you look at how beautiful this is. This is going to be so gorgeous in my salon. I cannot wait to hang it up in there. I have just the spot picked out already. Look at those scissors. They are definitely not hair cutting scissors, but they're beautiful. Okay, I have this fixative that my cousin Lori gave me, and I just took it outside and sprayed that inlay when it was completely dry. I'm going to take Petticoat Pink and I'm going to dry brush just over these molds, and then I decide I want it on the frame too. I did not capture that on camera, but I did it just a little bit around the edges of the frame. It is really faint, but it just pulls out the details. I really love the details in these molds. And then I'm going to seal the entire thing with Big Top with a paintbrush, a soft paintbrush, and just seal the entire frame with Big Top by DIY. And then I'm just going to assemble it all together. I'm not going to show you all the boring details of how I put it in there, and then I pushed all the little tabs down to hold it in, and then I have that hanger that I put on there. Well, it already had a hanger, but I added an extra hanger, and this is the final result. I'm sorry the lighting was so poorly in there, but sometimes a girl's just got to take pictures when a girl has time. So this is when your girl had time, and this is what the pictures look like. You will see the final reveal in the salon when I get it all done. Now, the other item that we were to use was a tin can. Now, I have this amazing can opener that opens cans where you don't have a sharp edge. And then I had this little knob in my stash, and this came off of a candle, and it was just the little lid to the candle, one of those little votive candles, and I cut the tassel off, and we'll save that for a future project. Now, I'm just going to glue the knob on top of this little wood piece, and if I had been smart, and I would have worked smarter, not harder, I would have just gone ahead and glued that down to the lid, that little aluminum lid. But no, I didn't. I painted everything, painting everything white with beadboard by DIY. One good coat, because we are going to use some clay. I do have a big, huge regret on this though, and you will see why. But see, I went and painted all that, which I didn't have to. Now, I used my cheap Crayola air dry clay because I was going to use a lot of it. Now, I used my metal ruler from Dollar Tree to cut it. Worked great. But I should have went ahead and used the DOS air dry clay instead, because this stuff cracks so bad. But I warmed it up in my hands. I've got cornstarch on my silicone mat, and I'm going to use this little rolling pin that my sister gave me. I think she used it with her grandkids, probably. And I'm just rolling it out as thin as I can get it. And I measured my can to see how tall and how big around it was. And I am going to cut it. So I just used that little Cricut tool. It's kind of sharp, actually. And I know that that can is 4 inches tall where I want it. So I'm making a couple of marks at 4 inches. And then I'm just going to use that as a knife and just run it up there. So now it's 4 inches wide from top to bottom. And I needed it a little over 9 1/4-ish inches to go all the way around that can. So I did the same thing there and then cut the excess off. And now I'm going to put the quick and thick Tite Bond on the can versus on the clay this time. Now, I don't know if I would have wet the clay and before, if it would have dried a little better. I do not know, except that I know every time I've used this clay, it cracks. Maybe it's dry. It's more dry. I don't know. And I have had it for a while. But I make it work because that's who I am. So I lay it on here. It doesn't crack until it dries. Okay? So just watch. So I press that down to get a seam. Okay, then I roll it around. I'm pressing it down into that glue. There was a little bit of a dent in the can. You can see right there. It's okay. It gives it character. And then I just pull it and make the seam match. And then I take a little bit of water. And I'm going to show you in a minute when I get through tipping and tapping. I take a little water in a little lid with a paintbrush and my finger. It worked better with my finger. And I just smooth that out till there's no line there anymore. I think I did add a little bit of clay extra to that bottom down there where it had a little bit of a gap. So while I'm letting that dry, now I'm going to use this. This is called the Conservatory Labels. And this is by Mobile IOD, and I'm going to use the one that I've already put the cornstarch in there. And I'm going to press it in, just like I did the other molds. Clean it off. I'm using the Cricut tool this time. And then just press it in and clean it off. Not sure why I'm showing you all this whole process, because I'm not the best at it. I'm just fumbling my way through. But you know what? In the end, it looks great. So the process might not look so great, but the end result is beautiful. Okay, come on, Kendra. Come on, honey. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to lay it over, and I have to use my little Cricut tool to kind of help it out a little bit, but that's okay. And then sometimes there's a little crumbs on the edges. And so I just take my finger and tap, 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 and they either fall off or they just fold in. They obey really well. So then I'm going to use the Quick Bond again, and this little spatula. Sometimes I use a paintbrush, sometimes I use a spatula, sometimes I use my finger. You know, mix it up. Don't be boring. Okay, then I'm going to slap it right there. Slap it on there and mold it around there. Okay, then we're going to let this dry just a little bit, let it cure, and look what happened. Oh my goodness, I wanted to cry. But don't be crying over spilt milk. Let's just clean it up. So I started with a sponge thinking I could just wet it, get it good and wet, and pinch it back together. No, that didn't really work. So what I ended up doing was getting some of the DOS air dry clay. And I rolled it in my hand real thin like we used to do Play-Doh. And then I put that piece in that crack. Did I show that part? Yes, I did. Okay, I'm showing you. I'm getting a little tiny wad of it. And then I rolled it really thin like a worm. Did y'all ever do that with your Play-Doh? Roll it really, really thin, or some clay. We had clay or Play-Doh in art class. Okay, really, really thin. And then I just laid it kind of in that little crack, and I pressed it in there really good. And then I used that little Cricut tool to kind of smooth it out. And then I just wet it and smoothed it out, and it worked fantastic. I mean, is it perfect? No. But are handmade crafts always perfect? No. So I love it. I love how it turned out. So this was a good fix. And when it dries and I repaint it, I mean, if you know it's there, you know it's there. But anyway, so now I try to use a little paint. I end up using, I don't know if I got this on camera. Yes, I did. I end up using one of those sponge daubers, and I pounced all that paint on there, so it gave it a little bit more texture. I absolutely loved, and it camouflaged that a little bit better too. So I did that all around this can, and you know, this kind of reminded me about, you know, the broken pot, the clay pot, and how God is the potter, and he just molds us and makes us, and we break because we don't obey, and then he never gives up on us. He just keeps fixing us. And the love of the potter's hands, and just I kept thinking about that when I was fixing that. I was like, I can fix this. I can fix this. This is not a lost cause. And y'all, we are not a lost cause. God is there for us, and he will fix us. So we just have to trust him and trust the process and put our faith in him. Okay, so I mixed a little bit of gray paint in with some white wax and made a little gray wax. And so I used that on the top. I'm also going to use it on the bottom, but first I'm taking Skeleton Key, which is a beautiful color, and I'm painting just the inside of that little label. Now I'm going to use that white, I'm using white wax all over it first, because I don't really want that gray wax to be that prevalent. I want it to be really subtle, but I really wanted to bring out the details in that mold. And then I put a little bit around the edges, and then I put just a little bit throughout. I didn't put it all over. I just here and there, just let that brush kind of drag here and there. And then I went over it with a little cloth to kind of buff it out. It just turns out so pretty, y'all. This, I don't know. It's between the frame and this one as my favorites in this video, but I really love them all and can't wait to get them in my salon. Now, I took this little piece of lace and I folded it in half. This is some lace I got off Shein, and I folded it in half, and I'm just going to glue it around the top. I wasn't real careful about making the top nice and smooth when I put that clay on there, because I knew I was going to put this on top. The bottom, I smoothed it out real nice with my wet fingertip, and so it looks really pretty. But this top, I knew I was going to put the lace on, and so I just didn't care if it was a little bit rough. And so and this lace is thin, and so it's laying down really nice and smooth. And this is just giving me the shabby chic vibe that I want without all the extra lace and flowers. I'm going to take that same little piece of lace and just wrap it around the knob on top. And this DIY is done. We're going to put the lid on first, and then this DIY is done. Okay, my friends, you know it would not be a late night creations video if we didn't do some spindles. This little frame was given to me. It's just a tiny little frame. I couldn't imagine what I was ever going to use it for. And then these beautiful spindles that came off of an old antique chair that was kind of broken down. Now, I thought that I was going to just use some Dark and Decrepit stain by DIY to just clean up and freshen up this frame, but I really didn't. I decided that's not what I wanted to do. So I ended up painting it with a coat of beadboard. Just gave it a good coat with beadboard. Just like so. The entire thing. I did not paint the back, just the front and the sides. This is for me, and nobody's going to see the back, so I didn't waste paint on the back. And I don't know if it's because I put the Dark and Decrepit on first, but it was very easy to paint. Now, I'm going to take that beautiful gray that I have. This is the Aged Gray by Rust-Oleum, and I'm just going to do that little outlining thing again. Just hit the high spots with a little bit of dry brush. It's a little bit wetter than a dry brush. I'm not wiping all of it off. Then I decided I would scrape a little bit of the paint off. Give it just, I don't really want a distressed look, but just maybe a little bit. And I was thinking because that stain was on there, maybe it would scrape off a little bit better, but it kind of didn't. And then now I'm going to seal it with the Varathane Clear Wax. Now I'm using that beautiful Petticoat Pink by DIY again, and I'm using I'm pouncing on with a dauber all over these spindles. I'm going to do all of them. All 5 of them are getting the same color and the same technique. And then I'm going to come back in with some white wax. I guess I'm going to show you painting the whole entire spindle. But it was kind of fun. This was a very fun technique to do. And then I did go in with a wet wipe. Oh yeah, I forgot I did this. I went in and kind of wet distressed it while I was painting them. So I put the paint on. I used a little paintbrush to get in all the little nooks and crannies. And then I used a wet wipe and kind of wiped back the paint. And it gave it a beautiful, like, worn look. Oh, I don't know. I just fell in love with this look. It was kind of a happy accident. I don't remember why. That I was wiping off something, and then it happened it was kind of an accident. So then I decided to just do them all that way. Look how beautiful. Okay, then I take the white wax by DIY with my little makeup brush. I love these makeup brushes. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on Temu. You can get them on Shein. You can get them anywhere, and they're about the same price everywhere. You can get them at Dollar Tree. And they're great for applying waxes. They're great for stenciling. And I'm just putting that white wax all over it, and then I'm wiping it off with an old piece of a t-shirt. They make great buffing cloths. So don't throw away those old t-shirts. And you can see the difference, and I love it. Now, I took the Apothecary label stamp, and of course, my black ink. Of course, I did not get this on camera. I was practicing. You'll see in a little bit where I practiced. And then when I finally did the final one, I forgot to record it. So I'm showing you where I do the Psalm 46:10, and there was only one dot, one period. So I had to do it. See, I used it for the abbreviation for Psalm, and then I used it for the colon for 46:10, the bottom portion of it, and then I covered up the others with some little parchment paper, and then stamped so that you know, I'm only getting the dot stamped, but I needed those other numbers to still be on there so I could tell where I needed to put it exactly on there, just like that. See? And then there's no ink on there to mess everything up. Now I'm going to clean it off. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move that little dot up where the top part of the colon should be. And then I'm going to do that same process again so that I can get a full colon on there. Ta-da. Okay, love how that looks. Now I'm going to take the IOD Vintage Textures stamp and some stone gray. And this was an old piece of matte board that I put this on, that I put the Be Still and Know on. I cut it to size for that frame because it was really odd shape. But this was just a scrap piece of matte board. And I'm just going to randomly stamp this. And I think it turns out really good. These stamps are great. They can just add a little extra texture in the background. Now we're going to put this in. And when I flip this over, you're going to see where I practiced. Oop, there's all my practicing. I was practicing how I was going to line it all up and if it was straight and how I was going to get all those extra letters in there. So I always practice. Now I'm going to use some Type Bond Quick and Thick and some hot glue. And I did spray that with a fixative, the front side of that with some fixative to seal that because it is going to be in the salon. Okay, now I am drilling some tiny little indentions just for some little pilot holes for my little eyelet screws. I think that's what they're called. Eyelet screws, yeah. And we are going to assemble our spindles. I don't think I got on camera that I did this same thing. Yep, see the spindles over there? They already have them in there. So we put the little eyelet screws on top of the spindles too, with the same process. I drilled a little tiny hole in the top of the spindle and put the eyelet screws on top of the spindles as well. So we have an eyelet screw. We're going to have 5 eyelet screws across the bottom of this long frame. Right there, 5 of them. And then I have 5 spindles that have the eyelet screws in the top of them. And we're going to attach them with this beautiful white chiffon lace. And I'm going to use the tweezers because those eyelet screws are teeny-nincy. And I'm just going to pull it through there. I'm only going to show you, I think, one of them that I did. But I did all 5 of them with this same method. And I tried to get them all even. I did use that little skewer on some of them to help me poke that, poke that through the hole because see how tiny that little thing is? I don't know. I think I ordered them because I was ordering something else and I got the wrong ones. And I was like, oh, I'll put them in my stash. I'll use them for something someday. Well, someday is here and I'm using them. They came in very handy for this project. Now I'm just going to make it the length that I want them to hang. I'm kind of measuring them to see, how long I want them to hang down. And then I'm going to cut that and then going to tie that up right at the bottom so I can leave a little bit hanging off so it doesn't look like a bow hanging off, but it's just cute little shabby pieces hanging off. And I do trim them up a little bit at the end. There, I think I'm just showing you that second one, how it looks. And then I do all 5 of them, and then here is our finished product. I could not really get a good picture with good lighting, but you will see it in the salon in the final reveal at the end. In the state of Texas, we are required to have this human trafficking sign posted in our salon. And so I printed it out on some rice paper and decided to make something cute. This was part of an old cabinet door. I cut the tops off and then I painted it. It was kind of a strange texture, so I thought I would just sponge the paint on there to give it a little extra texture. So I just put the paint on with a paintbrush and then just sponged it on. It went really fast. It was really good. So I put the Mod Podge. I didn't get it filmed. I put it on the back of this paper. The ink did bleed just a tiny little bit, so I think I may have saturated it a little bit much. Then I dried it with my heat gun, and now it's all dry. I'm going to use the iron-on method. I'm going to put my parchment paper on top. I'm going to use my little mini heat press and iron it on. If you don't have a heat press, you can use a household iron to do this method. and you just don't want to use steam. That reactivates that glue and sets it in beautifully. And I never even seal it because that glue actually almost, if it's a thin decoupage or like the rice paper, it comes all the way up to through the paper. Okay, I made these 2 little molds. This is from the Trimmings 2 mold, I believe, from IOD. I made 2 of them. I'm going to put this Aged Gray by Rust-Oleum on it and some white wax. I am in love with this. It looks like concrete, or like those statues, you know, like the concrete statues. I love that look. So I'm going to put it on there, and then I like to put it on and let it sit for a little bit. And then I use the white wax to seal this all up really good. Because, you know, I don't know if you know, maybe you don't know, but in a salon, everything gets hair and hairspray all over it. So we want to seal stuff up as good as we can so that we can wipe it down. So we're going to wipe off as much of that white wax as we want, and we're going to attach these little molds to the top and the bottom as a border with some Titebond, quick and thick, and maybe a little hot glue. I don't remember. Yep, a tiny little bit of hot glue for a quick hold. So let's place that right up there on top for a border and right on bottom. And I will tell you, I put it in the salon, and everybody that has come by says, oh my goodness, you have to do something cute with mine too. So let me know what you think. This project was simple and cute, and I did it late at night and was not recording. This frame you will see in the salon had hearts in it, and I just took the hearts out. I put a piece of watercolor paper down. This was a redesign by Prima Rub-On Transfer. I just put it right on that watercolor paper. I put the watercolor paper on a piece of cardboard cut to size for this frame and put it in the frame. And that was easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And I'm sorry I didn't get it on camera, but that is how easy it is to make over something. Okay, I'm in the salon. I'm doing the DIY in the salon, so the lighting is horrible. The angle's horrible. I apologize. But I took a little bit of that greenery I got from Temu, made a little tiny swag. I'm going to use some of these ribbons and this lace and all these little pretties, make a little shabby bow. And I had horrible scissors to cut with. Those are not my hair cutting scissors. Those are just some, well, they actually came in my very first kit I got in 1988 when I went to cosmetology school. And now I use them for utility scissors. I'm just going to use my little, I'm even using my mini hot glue gun that I have at work. And I'm just going to glue everything down just to make a little mini swag on my licensing frame. Just to zhuzh it up just a little bit. And that is that. So here we go. I'm going to show you the before and the after and let you see what it looked like before. And then look, notice that cabinet, the cabinet color, that dull, dingy color, and that mirror. Just all the things, just be observant. There's those scissors and that shelf. And there's that human trafficking sign, just a piece of paper I had stuck on the wall. And my little table. And my aprons hung on push pins. Yes, there's that sign, human trafficking. We need to be sure we pray for all the people who are caught up in that God will protect them and expose the people who are misusing and mistreating people. And there's that frame I was just talking about with the hearts in it. And that is how I used to store my pens and pencils. I still have that. I love it. Okay, are you ready for this? Here we go. Painted the door white. Aprons are hanging from the beautiful spindle. You will recognize some of these things as I've done them over the past few weeks. I will link all the videos in the description box below in case you missed any of the projects that I did in this salon makeover. You can go back and watch them. And I appreciate all your support. I appreciate you watching all the videos. I appreciate all your kind words. It really does help and encourage and keep us going on YouTube. So let me know what your favorite makeover piece or addition to this salon makeover was. Love my new white cabinet. It just brightened up the room so much. And when I created this little caddy, I told you that you wouldn't be able to see one side of it because that's how it sits. And it does not need the bottom in it because all my products are just going to sit in there, and the bottom always gets really grungy. So this way I can just move that and wipe the bottom and keep it all nice and tidy. And there's my new mirror. I purchased that off Marketplace at a really good price. It was already gray. I just had to do a little touch-up paint. Already had the little candle holder, little candle sconce. And I added these molds to that IKEA shelf, that floating shelf. That is from the Trimmings 2 mold. I believe it's the Trimmings 2 mold. And yes, I painted them gray, did white wax, and then I used Tite Bond and hot glue to adhere them. And there's our beautiful little table with the coasters on it. Setting up. That's how fast this stuff sets up. So I mixed up a new batch and poured them, and yeah, it sets up in like 10 minutes, and then it takes maybe an hour or so to actually cure completely, but you can pop them out. And then I had all these little, this was my first time, and so I had all these little edges on them that I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and just clean that up, and it cleaned up really easy. Look, it just slices right off, and it was not a problem to do that, and they turned out really cute. So I'm going to use one of those on this project. I'm going to use, I think this was the DIY crinoline, in the color crinoline, and then I'm going to just put a little whitewash on it, and then I'm using the DIY dark wax. And I'm just going to give this a little dimension and make it look a little aged. I'm going to also use that on the little keyhole. What do you call that? Little keyhole. Yeah. It almost looks like a cameo too. And I kind of went with that wood grain. So this little piece of wood I was cutting a chunk of wood to even it up. This was some of that I got out of that dumpster dive I posted last week, and I was just evening up a chunk of wood, and this was the little piece that came off. So this was a piece of scrap. And these are some stickers that I got from, I want to say I got these from Temu. I'm not real sure where I got them from. I can't even remember where I get stuff from anymore. It's old brain. But they are so pretty, and they stick right. They almost feel like a rub-on transfer when you get done with them. And then this little lacy ribbon came from Dollar Tree. I absolutely love it. It's a soft cotton. And then it was a little too wide, so I'm just going to fold it in half. And I'm not even going to take it off. I'm just going to roll that down and fold it in half. And voila. There we go. And I want to put it over kind of to one side. And then I have a little brass key. I got these on Amazon, And I will try to link them in the description box if I don't forget. And I'm just going to take a little piece of embroidery floss, and I tried to kind of pick a color that would kind of match in case it showed. And I'm going to tie this right in the center of that little knot so it kind of hangs down there. And then tie that knot back really nice and tight. And then there it is, all finished. You could put a magnet on the back. You could put a little hanger. It would be cute on a tier tray. It is just adorable, very shabby chic. But you know, I'm a garland or banner girl. I love them both. I love banners and garlands. But today we're going to make a garland, and I painted everything with white chalk paint. And then I bought these little stamp-looking, romantic stamp-looking things off Temu. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not. And they were super cheap, and I got a ton of them. And I thought they would be so fun to craft with. Just wait till you see what I did. Just wait. It's hilarious. Anyway, so I'm taking this rose color by, it's the Michaels brand paint. And just gave it a little dry brush on there, or just put some streaks on there. I did a little bit on the beads as well. And then I took my sanding block and just distressed it a little bit, not a ton. I did the beads a little bit too. Now, I take the Aleene's tacky glue and I put it all across the back of this shiny, what I thought was paper. And I put it on there and I start to rub it, and the corner starts coming up. And so I start kind of peeling it. I think I'm going to put some glue behind there. And guess what? It's a sticker. It's a sticker. I am so blonde. But guess what? It works out great. And these stickers are so amazing. And it just stuck right on there. And they're thin. They're almost like maybe like a decoupage paper or a rice paper. And it just stuck right down on there so smoothly. I think it is so pretty. I love it. This is my style, guys. I love it. So then I'm going to take those beads, and I did a large one, a small one, a large one, a small one. And I just did a pattern, and I just put however many on there I wanted to. Just kept going until I got them all done. And then I tied a knot on the end. And, oh, maybe I didn't tie a knot on that end. I thought I did. Oh, yep, I did. Tied a knot on that end, and then I like to just put a little drop of hot glue to help the beads stay right there. A lot of times I'll put super glue in those twine knots so that they will not come undone. Now this one, I for some reason had to do a double knot. So yeah, I just pull that knot I didn't get it all the way down there, so let me undo it and pull it all the way down on top of that other knot so it's a thicker knot. Put my little drop of hot glue on there. You can see what I'm doing. I don't even have to tell you. See, there's that Band-Aid. See that Band-Aid on my finger? Yes, I snipped my finger good when I was cutting somebody's hair that day. And then I'm going to put this tag on this end of that beaded garland. First, I'm going to burn the little hairs off. Be careful if you do that. And then, there's probably a really good, simple way to tie this up. But this is just how I did it. If you have a good way to do it, you just do it. It worked for me. And I like the way it looked in the end. I like the way that looks when it's wrapped around the like a loop through the hole. There I am with my super glue. Just put some of that super glue in that twine so it's not going anywhere. Here I am with that beautiful cotton lace ribbon. And I'm going to put 2 little pieces of that right there. I'm not even trying to make a bow or anything. I'm just, making some fluff. I just like the way it looked. There's not always some rhyme or reason to the way that I craft. Just so that you like it in the end, right? Now I'm going to make a tassel out of that ribbon. So I'm just using my little squeegee. You could use a piece of cardboard. You can use your hand, whatever. I'm just going to wrap it around a few times. And I don't know why I was being so meticulous, because in the end I just wad it all up. Now I thought I was going to use this twine, and it was really thick. And so I was going to grab some thinner twine, and then I remembered that I had this beautiful embroidery floss, or embroidery thread. I don't even know if people call it floss anymore. Back in the day when I first started embroidering 45 years ago, we called it embroidery floss, and I could go to the dime store downtown on Main Street. It's called Ben Franklin's. Well, there was Ben Franklin's or Mott's in my little town, and they were the 5 and dimes, and I could get embroidery floss for 5 cents a skein, or whatever, that little thing I just showed you. We called that a skein. And I was taught to embroider when I was young, about 9 or 10 years old, and I loved it. I did embroidery on my jeans. I did it on cup towels, just anything I could find or tea towels. They were tea towels. Okay, so you can just see what I'm doing. It's pretty self-explanatory. And now I'm just going to fluff that. Oh, I'm going to trim the bottom, cut them open, and then I'm just going to fluff it, unwad it and wad it and unwad it until I get it to look like I want it to, and then I'm going to tie it on the other end of our beaded garland. I really, really love how this garland turned out.